taking off full speed and lock the door. Lord, we'll take another drink. The next round is on me. Tequila, whiskey, beer, or gin. I don't care what you think. I'm getting drunk again, and it won't be long. No, it won't be long. No, it won't be long. He stole my champagne bottle and my lucky silver cross. My baby gave him to me and I can't believe they're lost. Wish I could remember where I was when this began. Another drink, I start to think the bottle is my friend. My friend. My friend. Long black limousine, won't you drive me home? I've been drinking all damn day, and now I got to go. Now if you see that limousine driving down the street, take my advice, no, don't think twice. Call the state police. Oh. We'll take another drink. The next round is on me. Tequila, whiskey, beer, or gin. I don't care what you think. I'm getting drunk again, and it won't be long. No, it won't be long. No, it won't be long. No, it won't be long. Oh, take another drink. The next round is on me. Tequila, whiskey, beer, or gin. I don't care what you think. I'm getting drunk again, and it won't be long. No, it won't be long. No, it won't be long. No, it won't be long. Oh, no, it won't be long. No, it won't be long. No. Oh, take another drink. The next round is on me. Tequila, whiskey, beer, or gin. I don't care what you think. I'm getting drunk again, and it won't be long. No, it won't be long. No, it won't be long. Oh, take another drink. The next round is on me. Tequila, whiskey, beer, or gin. I don't care what you think. I'm getting drunk again, and it won't be long. No, 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 it won't be long.
It's now time for Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It began as a podcast, went live on the net, and transformed into a full-blown empire across the web, on Fight Now TV, and on radio stations around the world. It's the only daily boxing talk radio show on the planet, hosted by the only guy with the balls to do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of boxing talk radio. Talkin' Boxing with Billy C is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C studio, the sweltering Billy C studio in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for Talking Boxing with Billy C. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're listening. You know, you guys got used to seeing me, in a sport jacket. Well, that's when it's so freezing cold in this studio that, I got to look sharp. But now, I'm going to be in my skivvies soon. I want to scare the hell out of everybody. I might even take the shirt off. But anyway, this show is being brought to you in part by Campanaro and Tomkovich. If you're looking for a lawyer, use the ones that keep my ass out of trouble. That's Campanaro and Tomkovich. Give them a call today, 845-221-4099. 845-221-4099. And wish Campanaro a happy birthday. Yeah, she just turned 30 today. She turned 30. So, hey, tell them Billy C sent you, and don't forget, if you call this week, I will pick up your consultation fee. 845-221-4099. The show is also being brought to you in part by Jimmy Birchfield's Classic Entertainment and Sports, and their next event, July 27th. That's right, at the Twin River Event Center in Lincoln, Rhode Island. I guess that's next week, huh? Yeah, I guess that's next week, so get yourself some tickets right now. You can get them easily by visiting our website, www.BillyCBoxing.com. Click the Game On Fight poster, which is right there on the right-hand side. Can't miss it. And, hey, as an added bonus for your ticket value, not only am I going to tell you something that Classic Entertainment Sports is doing for you, especially if you get a VIP or something like that, but Alex Papali, that's right, our very own Alex Papali, he's going to be ringside, dressed in fishnets. And he wants to say hello to you. I don't know if that's going to scare you away or what. But speaking of Alex, he'll be joining us a little bit later. We're doing a blast from the past. One of my favorite old timers, old time fighters, Pancho Villa. No, not the Mexican bandito that was shooting up the place. No, not him, and not the Frito bandito either. Come on, man. I'm talking about Pancho Villa, who's a Filipino fighter. Many regard the best Filipino fighter ever. We'll talk about him in a little bit. A couple of things real quick. We got this thing going on. I got a lot of emails I'm going to read about the, overall, the old-time fighters versus today's fighters, who's better to you. Everybody's, there's no right or wrong answer. We're looking for your thoughts, your opinions. But right now you can cast your vote up on the website, www.BillyCBoxing.com. And as of, we posted the poll question yesterday, and just before I went on air, it's still 100% all say the old timers. So cast your vote, especially if you like the young whippersnappers of today. Cast your vote right now, www.BillyCBoxing.com. Like I said, Alex Papali is going to be joining us a little bit later. Scotty Krause will be joining us in about 20 minutes or so. Also, I want you guys to understand or learn about something that we're going to be doing, or LDL TV, where you can always catch the enhanced version of this show right now, www.ldltv.com. LDL TV does other stuff aside from, my fat ass. And one of the things is they do these ghost things. All right. Now my man, the bigwig, the rich guy, the suit, if you will, from LDL TV, my man John, he tells me one day, we did this ghost thing, man. We did this ghost thing. And my main man, my main filming guy, nothing against JJ or nothing, because, he's my other main man, but my main man, Kenny, right? Even he's going, oh, man, the hair on my neck was standing up. We were so scared, and I'm like, come on, man. And John says to me, oh, I'm going to show you the video clip. And he shows me a video clip, and it's like, and he said, oh, did you hear it? It said that I got murdered, and I'm like, what? What are you talking about? So I've become pretty skeptical. Well, Now's your chance to see me get scared out of my wits and run and scream like a little girl, because there's a program that they're going to be doing. They want to research this. All the information can be found if you visit our website right now, www.BillyCBoxing.com. You'll see right on the right-hand side is a banner. You can check out a short video and all the information about what they want to do, and you can get involved with this production. It's going to be one of those TV shows. And I think you're going to like it, and I think you should support it. You know, it takes some money to get this done, and you can donate $1 all the way up to, I think, $1,000 for you rich guys. But check it out. It's under the Kickstart program, and I'd appreciate it if you got involved, because I don't think I'm going to be running like no damn scared girl. That's for sure. But I'm looking forward to doing it. So only you can help it make it happen. So click on the banner right now, www.BillyCBoxing.com. You'll see it. All right, we got some emails. Let's get these rolling. I got some fight results. I got some news about Iron Mike Tyson that I can't wait. And listen, it's official. It's official. Adrien Broner is a total a-hole. Total a-hole. And I wouldn't be surprised. You know how Floyd's calling him, I was going to try not to mention his name, but you know how he calls him, oh, he's like my little brother? He's going to be like the redheaded stepchild brother real soon. I think Floyd is going to try to separate himself from this guy pretty quick, because this is a calamity waiting to happen, and I'll tell you his latest in a few. But first, my man T. Bruce says, Floyd has fought bigger guys in the gym and in the ring, but I do not believe that he's durable enough to fight a big guy with that type of power. Triple G can kill guys his own size. Imagine what he could do to a 150-pounder. It's not all about Triple G being bigger. It's him being so much stronger. Floyd will die in the ring. And sparring a few big guys is not the same as a live fight under the lights against a guy like that. Floyd can fight him, but he ain't winning. I'm still curious to see how well Floyd does against Canelo's power. I think Canelo can hurt Floyd to the body or up top with a punch. He says, I also feel that Floyd may have to face some adversity against Canelo, because of Canelo being such a big Mexican. People look at him as a slow-handed fighter like Ortiz. Ortiz is fast, but fast for a brawler. Canelo is a sharpshooter fast, and I want to see how that fight plays out. I bet Triple G hits at least 2.5 times harder than Canelo and 4 times harder than the most. Listen, what's the old saying? You know, in order to be knocked out, you got to get hit flush, and I'm not so sure Triple G would be able to hit Floyd flush. I will do a side note here. T. Bruce did send me some photos that I had not seen before, and I will admit that Triple G looked a lot bigger than Matthew Macklin in street clothes when they were standing next to each other in street clothes. Now, I'm still somebody that believes that Triple G looked the same size as Matthew Macklin inside the ring, but definitely if T is going by the size difference from those stills that he sent me, I have to agree that Triple G looked monstrous, to say the least. T. Bruce goes on to say, what is one more thing, Chisora wasn't playing up to the crowd. LOL. I guess all those other times he did something crazy to people, he was just playing up to the crowd. Bottom line, he's not the type of guy that Hayes should allow to walk up to him after making so many threats and showing the world that he's willing to cross that line. Listen, man. Listen. You made your point yesterday about a street fight. No rules and everything else. If you have a bottle or something like that, you're going to use it, and I'm not going to argue with you there. But in this particular situation, it was a post-fight press conference. David Hayes comes in the back door, starts shooting off his mouth, and many people say, what was he even doing there? He did have a credential because he was calling the fight that night, and Derek Chisora was up on the podium talking about him just going the distance with Klitschko, and they started bantering back and forth, and Chisora went up to him. Now, up to that point, everybody was smiling and laughing, it was like a joke, and Chisora's walking up to him with a microphone. Listen, This was no street fight. This was not something that David Haye should have been threatened or anything like this. It was called showmanship, and David Haye acted like a bitch, and he made that whole thing, a lot worse than what it was. That's my opinion. You have yours. Whatever. I know David Haye is one of your heroes, but to me, he's a bitch. I got to take a break. I'll finish that email and several more in about 2. If you're in upstate New York and you need a trucking company, then you need Roselli Enterprises. Roselli Enterprises is trucking at its finest. They have it all: dump trucks, dump trailers, walk-in floors, flatbeds, flowboys, tankers, loaders, and a full line of roll-off containers for any job, big or small. Roselli Enterprises is also the source for all your sand, gravel, and topsoil needs. Visit them on the web at RoselliTrucking.com or call 315-433-5115. That's 315-433-5115 and tell them Billy C sent you.
Are you ready, America? Then let's get it on with Fight Now TV. It's time, fight fans. Your channel has arrived. All the fights, all the names, all the action. From world-class boxing events to mixed martial arts showdowns and other combat sports matchups, Fight Now TV delivers the hits and more. Call your television provider and tell them you want to get it on with Fight Now TV. For more details, go to fightnow.com.
We've got a great matchup tonight. Fighting out of the left corner is the #1 ranked contender.
No, he is not.
I'm sorry, but who are you?
I am the IBO computer. I am programmed to provide only fair and unbiased boxing rankings. This fighter is the number 15 ranked contender.
Fair and unbiased boxing rankings? That's a new concept.
Actually, it is not. The IBO has provided unbiased computerized rankings for many years.
Well, we've still got a great fight tonight, folks. In the left corner is the number 15 ranked contender.
The IBO, the champion of integrity. Learn more at IBOBoxing.com.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts. Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning.
As a young boy, all Billy C dreamed about was one day having his own catchphrase.
And we're back. And we're back.
One boy, one dream, one day, everyone will say.
And we're back. 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 And we're back.
Catchphrase coming soon to a theater near you.
And we're back. You're listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C show. Yeah, it's hot as hell. Really. I mean, how hot is it? How hot is it? The trees are looking at me like, they wish they had some air conditioning. When a tree is really hot, you know it's hot, man. When the trees' leaves are just like, water. It's been raining every day. I mean, I was going to build an ark, but T. Bruce says, I want to talk about Rigo. Thank God. I'm so sick of talking about these other guys that you talk about. He says, I'm so unimpressed now. He says, I'm so unimpressed by how HBO did Rigo. He says, Rigo ran for about 3 rounds or so. It's not like he's a Briel who clinches or Vasquez who runs and jabs. Rigo stands his ground. Then he uses his lateral movement when you're on the attack. He ain't a barely skilled runner. He's a highly skilled fighter who needed that aspect of his game to win. Nonito was so much bigger, and it's no way Rigo could have stood his ground and wrestled with him on the inside. I thought all the networks rewarded you for doing that. Good. Rewarded you for doing that good. Whether it had thought that all the networks, whether it had a few bad rounds or not, they rewarded my boy T-Craw, he's talking about Terrence Crawford, for the fight against Prescott because he did so well. Yeah, listen, Nonito's an HBO boy. Don't forget that, man. Nonito's one of their boys. Nonito was exposed. I said that about Nonito Donaire for the longest time, man. And I agree. They definitely didn't give Rigondeaux the credit. But anyway, He said they didn't care that that fight was boring. He's talking about Crawford against Prescott. They just felt that he deserved the TV date and how well he did, et cetera, et cetera. The only reason they did this to Rigo is two things. They were bitter by how bad he did their hype job, no Rigo, no Nair, which I agree with. He says they also pay too much attention to Fat Dan. He's talking about Dan Raphael, who over-exaggerated about the fight being awful. It's awful. First of all, that's how many times do I got to tell you? Everybody, not you, just you, T. Everybody. Dan Raphael doesn't know a left hook from a fish hook. He may be a good rider, but he is not a boxing guy. How he got that gig, I'll never know. So whoever takes what Dan Raphael says, and he never does say anything technical about boxing because he doesn't know. He's good at finding out the stories and getting the actual numbers and finding out, who signed with who and all of that, and that I admire about him. But as far as being a boxing guy, he's not. So don't listen to him. How he gets these gigs. First of all, he's the most pompous guy. Please, don't even get me started with him. He's a ton of fun. That's all I could say. But anyway, he says he's awful when he over-exaggerated about the fight being awful. When a fighter runs and jabs, it's not awful. It's not awful when Floyd does it. It's the sweet science to many when Floyd does it. Rigo does it and it's awful. Come on. It's not awful when a highly skilled technician displays the abundance of skills and puts it in a few boring rounds. Rigo has always been a toe-to-toe fighter. This was the only fight where he ran because it was needed. And he didn't even run. He nailed Nonito Donaire so much. Nonito Donaire was complaining, I hurt my hand. Oh, my face got busted up. My kid, my kid who's being born. He says, of course, Nonito was too big to really be hurt by the smaller Rigo. He says, but I never seen HBO do this to a fighter because of 3 or 4 rounds that were boring. He's just because Dan got on Twitter and said it was awful. They think he's the voice of the fans or something like that. And they're kissing his Fitty's ass about how exciting Gradovich and Dib fight was. Oh, come on, man. Dib sucks. Billy Dib sucks. And you want to know what else? Remember something. HBO, they can't even call a fight without the punch stats. So please, until they clean house over there, the whole thing is a joke. He says the whole fight was hugging and kissing, big shots landing in between, the ref constantly breaking them up. He's talking about the Gradovich Billy Dib fight and the horrible, boring fights Floyd puts on. They never did that to him because they didn't care. They just felt he was so good that he deserved the show on the network. Same way they rewarded Terrence Crawford, who was exciting in his next fight. I'm disappointed with H.B. Ho. I can't really argue with you there, bro. I can't. He goes on to say people like Dan are not perceptive enough to have a gray area. It's like some people saying Broner only fights bums. That's not true. He fought the best. It's just that he's was too big for that weight class when he fought. People are not perceptive enough to gather those ideas, so they just think they are bums, minus Paulie. He was shot. He says Danny is not perceptive enough. Dan is not perceptive enough. He did excellent, but he had some boring rounds, so goes out and just classifies the whole fight as a boring fight. Listen, nobody listens to Dan Raphael, and whoever does is a jerk. So, for anybody listening out there, if you think Dan Raphael knows this stuff, you're a jerk. He says Floyd spent the entire first half of the fight. He says in Floyd's last fight, he spent the entire first half of the fight trying to get his offense off and then trying to find his range. But after that 8th round, he did so good. He started running the rest of the fight without doing much offensively. Yet Dan says that was a great performance by Floyd. Floyd's fight was almost identical to Rigondeaux from the way it started to the way it ended. He says, yes, he writes an article kissing Floyd's tush. He said that boy's bottom is smacking on Floyd's whatever. And he says that's the way his whatever rides. Can't deny, man. I agree with you. Dan Raphael's a total clown. He's a good writer, and he makes some decent money. He makes great money, but he's a jerk, number one. And number two, he doesn't know left hook from a fish hook. So, whoever listens to him, you're a jerk too. Biggerback. He's talking about Rigo. He says, had Rigo been fighting the same... Oh, I'm sorry. He says, Rigo is exciting as Donaire. Donaire isn't a pressure fighter. He just waits for smaller guys with no defense to bull rush him so he could land his counter like he did with Darchinyan, Arce, and Montiel. I agree with that 100%. I said all along that Nonito Donaire was overrated. Everybody thought I was nuts. He finally gets exposed, and now everybody blames Rigondeaux for putting on a boring fight. Come on, man. Come on. He says, had Rigo been fighting the same smaller, tailored fighters Donaire had been fighting, like Arce and Victor Darchinyan, he would look just as spectacular. Keep in mind, when both faced fighters who refused to engage, like Navarez and Rico Ramos, Rigo took more risks and KO'd a younger and bigger Ramos, where Nonito Donaire didn't do anything to the much smaller and older Navarez. Excellent point, bigger back. He tells it like it is right there. I agree with him 100%. That's a perfect analogy. You know, Rigondeaux, when he fights the guys that he's supposed to beat and beat convincingly, he takes chances and does what he's got to do. Nonito Donaire never takes chances, and the reason why is because he was exposed. You know, we just saw the reason why when he fought Rigondeaux, because he's not that good, you know, and he's never going to get back to that same level. You watch, unless they hand feed him another cupcake. Guaranteed, man. Nonito Donaire was overrated because he fought smaller guys. You know, when he started his climb up, you know, in all these other divisions, you know, he's exciting. People like him. Hey, listen, nobody really wanted to work with him. Remember, you know, he screwed everybody he's been with. You know, I'm not a big fan. In case you haven't noticed, I'm not a big fan of Nonito Donaire. Never was, and I don't think I ever will be. Louis V says the WBC and Golden Boy must have a lot of confidence in Canelo Alvarez. You know, they didn't make that gold-plated belt with Floyd in mind. He says, I guess they believe they will be crowning a new king on September 14th, a Mexican king. I read that Garcia-Matisse fight will be on the undercard for the Mayweather-Canelo fight, which will be the perfect opportunity for Matisse to call out Floyd if he should win. Garcia and Broner didn't fight because Broner dodged the talent-packed 140-pound division and went after an easier belt in a heavier weight class. That's why that fight didn't happen. There's nothing else. A lot of people feel that way, Louis, and I think you might be right about the WBC and also Golden Boy thinking a little too, being a little too overconfident with the super duper diamond plated belt and the Ferrari leather strap and all of that stuff. You know, they're dying to hand it to the Mexican fighter, but and I hope they do, but I am finding it really hard to do that, to think that he's got a chance. Hey, listen, I got several more emails here. I got a couple of good ones about the our topic of the week, which is the old-time fighters versus today's fighters. Who do you think was overall better? And I'm not asking you to say, well, you know, I think so-and-so was better than so-and-so. No, I'm not asking you that. I'm just saying overall, and what makes you feel that way. You know, we've gotten a lot of great emails and thoughts and comments about it. The majority of the people think that the old garbage videos don't show anything. And, you know, they don't want to believe what articles were written about fighters. They want to be able to see it, feel it, touch it, and all that kind of thing. Some of the people in favor of the old-timers are saying, well, they were tougher, they were stronger, they fought more frequently. There was a bigger pool of fighters, and the level of opposition was better. And many of those fighters that of yesteryear that didn't, win a world title would have clearly been world champions today. So that whole aspect of being a world champion is thrown out the window. A lot of good stuff. Evolution. You know, the human race is bigger, better, stronger. Other sports, bigger, better, stronger. So listen, cast your vote. We got the poll question vote up on BillyCBoxing.com. Cast your vote there and take a minute and drop me an email. Let me know what your thoughts are. Billy@TalkinBoxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com. Hey, while you're visiting the website, don't forget, I'm the skeptic. Yeah. LDL TV does this ghost chasing stuff. And, I'm like the Bill Murray, I guess, from Ghostbusters. But they do this ghost chasing stuff, and I'm the skeptic. So they want me to run and scream like a girl, and they're going to be doing this TV show on it. And they need your help. So check it out. There's a whole Kickstart program. There's an explanation. There's videos and all that stuff. Check it out. There's a banner up on the website right now, www.BillyCBoxing.com. It's a cool story. I've heard this many times, and every one of these guys that was involved with it so far have sworn to me that there was somebody touching necks and ankles and talking to them and all of this stuff, and I'm just like, I'm just waiting to see, Casper, Casper the friendly ghost.
Are you ready, America? Then let's get it on with Fight Now TV. It's time, fight fans. Your channel has arrived. All the fights, all the names, all the action. From world-class boxing events to mixed martial arts showdowns and other combat sports matchups, Fight Now TV delivers the hits and more. Call your television provider and tell them you want to get it on with Fight Now TV. For more details, go to fightnow.com.
Broadcasting in all corners of the globe, on the web and radio.
He would scoff at a stretch of that man, I would think.
You're listening to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. From upstate New York in the good old US of A.
Boxing is here to stay because we are here to stay.
The best 2 hours of boxing talk on the airwaves.
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. And tell him Billy C sent ya.
Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C, the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C, damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
The undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
Test 1 2. Test 1 2. My fellow Americans, good evening. Welcome back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It's great to be here discussing the sweet science with everybody. I love boxing. I love talking boxing. It's what I do.
Bill.
Wait, what?
Bill.
Why are you interrupting me? Wait, what?
Wrong.
What's the problem?
Billy
what?
C.
I did not have...
We're gonna have to ask
wrong
you.
Speech. What do you mean wrong, Billy C? What's going on here? Fine, I'll go. I just wanted to talk some boxing on TPSradio.net. That's all I wanted to do. I don't need your damn show. I'll get my own talking wrestling with the other Billy C. Yeah, that sounds good. I've always been a Hulkamaniac anyway.
Broadcasting live, brother. Welcome back to Talking Boxing with Billy C on the mighty TPSradio.net, brother. What you gonna do, brother?
And we're back. You're listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C show. You're watching us on the Fight Now television channel. Glad you could join us. It's pretty frickin' hot out, I'll tell you that. At least here. You know, I get educated by my man John from LDL TV, and he was happy to point out that it's never reached 99 degrees in Miami, which shocks the hell out of me. It's been over 100, in New York many, many times. And I tell you right now, how hot is it? How hot is it? The ice cubes won't get out of the tray. That's how hot it is. Joining us right now is Scotty Krause. What's up, brother?
The temperature, man, it's hot here, dude.
How hot is it there? How hot is it there?
I don't know the exact temp. I think it's around 100, so it's pretty nasty out there.
It's terrible. I mean, you can't, you can't function. I had to cut the lawn today, and that's a whole adventure for me. I don't know if you've ever heard the lawn cutting adventures of Billy C, but it's a dangerous thing. I have things like spark plugs shooting out of the thing and almost taking out my kneecap and everything else. Between that and the humidity and the vicious man-eating bugs that live up here in the Adirondacks, it's terrible. It's terrible, man. But
I'd love to dedicate a show just hearing about that.
Oh, I tell you what, I could do a whole show just talking about that. But instead, let's talk a little boxing. I tell you, I was shocked at the Edwin La Bamba Rodriguez and Dennis Grachev fight. Grachev, listen, he was no world beater. I knew that. But to be honest with you, the last couple of fights of Edwin La Bamba Rodriguez, he didn't impress me. He actually looked like he was regressing under Ronnie Shields. And, man, did he come out like I've never seen him before and ended this fight really quickly. What's your thoughts on the fight and on La Bamba? And the other question is maybe he should be fighting at light heavyweight.
Well, you talk about a statement fight. I mean, that fight certainly made a statement for Rodriguez. Here's a guy that's been highly touted, but just hasn't lived up to the hype yet. I mean, we just haven't seen him in the ring look as good as we hear he is. And, I guess we've been a little disappointed with him. He's still an undefeated fighter. He's still learning. But at the same time, I think more was expected. And he certainly had a career win and made a big statement against Grachev, who just, that was surprising. I mean, Grachev, he was never in the fight. I mean, not for a moment. He just looked stunned. He had a deer in the headlights kind of look, and never could get himself in the fight. I mean, here's a guy that handed Ismail Salak, who was a highly touted fighter, his first loss, a stoppage loss after 17 fights. He's a guy that went 12 with Lucian Bute and gave him a very tough fight. It was a guy that handed Zolt Erdai his first loss after 33 fights. I mean, this was no bum, and Rodriguez blew him out of the ring. So we see what he's capable of doing, and you're right. Maybe super middleweight just isn't where he needs to be. Maybe this guy, maybe he's just too weak at super middleweight. Maybe he needs to be at light heavyweight, because it's certainly he certainly looked good there on Saturday. He looked fantastic.
Yeah, you make an interesting point. In all those fights, let's face it, they were upsets for Grachev. He wasn't expected to win any of them. And just as you were reminding me, when he fought Salika that night on ESPN Friday Night Fights, if you recall, Salika was winning the fight easily, and I'll never forget this. This is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard come out of a corner man. They said, listen, man, you're cruising. We need to get rounds in. Take your time, box, have some fun out there. And before you know it, he gets caught. And I think that Grachev, and maybe this is where Ronnie Shields deserves to get credit when he was putting together the game plan, maybe he saw in all those fights that you just brought up, and you were 100% correct, that he wore down those fighters, and Grachev had a way of getting stronger as the fight went on. Maybe he saw something that they didn't, that he starts off very slow, and he showed it. He was in trouble from the first punch. I mean, he was staggering around the ring. I was saying to myself, man, the referee looked like he was trying his hardest to help him get out of that round, just to see if he could go back to the corner and regain his senses. But he had to stop it. I mean, he was stumbling around. He was in some serious trouble. So maybe La Bamba did the right thing by jumping all over him that quickly.
Strategically, it obviously paid off for him and was the right thing to do, because Grachev is a grinder, and he will get stronger as the fight goes on. So I thought that was a wise strategy, and it certainly paid off. And if you've never seen or heard of Grachev before, you'd have looked at that fight and thought Rodriguez was in there against a bum. I mean, he made him look like a bum the way he just went right after him. And Grachev, he had no answer at all. I mean, he really just looked stunned by the aggression of Rodriguez and the effectiveness of Rodriguez so early in that fight.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. On Friday night fights, Chris Avelos fought in a war against Adrien Francisco. I thought it was a pretty entertaining fight. I thought both of those fights were entertaining. The co-main event was Glenn Tapia stopping Abby Han, which I thought that Han looked like he was coming back, but I guess the cuts and stuff just finally slowed him down, and Glenn Tapia looked like he was fighting in spurts, and towards just before the stoppage, it kind of looked like he was, reaching deep to see if he had any more fuel left in the tank. What was your thoughts on those two fights?
Well, I thought they were very good fights. I thought it was one of the better Friday night fights we've seen this year. You had two undefeated fighters, but clearly they weren't equal. Tapia, to me, just looked like the more polished fighter, the better prospect, but Han showed a lot of toughness. He showed a lot of grit. He showed a lot of heart. He was bleeding pretty badly. And that's what he was fighting with. He was just fighting with heart. It was a guy that had never lost as a pro, didn't want to suffer that first defeat. You saw him in the little interview talking about how this fight's probably a little more important for him than Tapia. He's older than Tapia, and Tapia, I think, has the better promotional ties and better team. Just has a little more advantage in the sport than Han. Han knew this was a very important fight for him to win. And he didn't win, but I think he looked good enough that if I'm Friday night fights, I'd like to have him back. I'd like to see him again because he was doing well later in the fight. It's just the punishment caught up to him before he could wear Tapia down, who I thought did seem to be wearing down a little bit. But overall, I thought he showed himself to be the more polished, just the more talented of the two fighters. But without those cuts, who knows what would have happened. In the main event, that was a war as well. I mean, I really I like that fight. Avalos showed a lot. He's lost two tough fights, both against undefeated fighters. He's been kind of a hard luck fighter. He fights good fighters, and he has a couple losses to show for it. Francisco, not quite, again, like the other fights, just not quite as polished as Avalos. Avalos just seemed to have a little more polish to him, and was clearly the guy who was throwing more punches. He just was the busier of the two fighters, and down the stretch, that paid off, and that's what won him the fight. But we certainly got a good evening of fights in.
Yeah, and you're right. That has to have been the best Friday night fights of the year. They've been really dealt with some pretty piss poor fights, and I don't know if you can really blame ESPN. I mean, I do believe that they're losing interest in boxing, unfortunately for us, the boxing people. But they did get a good one. And as far as the Francisco fight, I give Francisco a lot more credit. Avelos is a guy that, sometimes he does good and sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he squeaks out these wins, but this was supposed to be a fight that he was supposed to look good in, because they picked Francisco. He was a smaller fighter, he was an older fighter, but I think that the size, I think that if they were a little more equal with size, I think Francisco might have squeaked that fight out. He was out of gas, and if he could have given, similarly to the early rounds, in the last two, he wins the fight. It was that close. Even his corner was saying, I need you to give the best round here, when they were talking about the final round, and he had nothing left. And ultimately, I think that last round actually decided the fight, at least from being a draw to giving Avelos the W.
Yeah, Avalos just had more in the tank down the stretch, and was the busier guy down the stretch, and I thought that's what did it for him. But I thought Francisco, again, he did himself well, and all four of these fighters you'd like to see again. And when you're fighting on Friday night fights, maybe it's not the platform to take you to the next level to an HBO or a Showtime or something else. Maybe it doesn't quite work out that way for you, but at the very least, you'd like to come back. You'd like to be invited back, fight on the network again, get more exposure, and maybe after a few fights, you're able to move up. And if nothing else, then you get some paydays. And all four of these guys are worthy to have back on, I would say.
This weekend we got a couple of decent fights on slate. Derek Chisora against Malik Scott is one that I know I personally have my eye on. Malik Scott is a fighter that I thought he got robbed in his last fight, which surprised me. The fight surprised me. I picked Glasgow in that fight. And I believe Malik Scott won that fight and, just was in the wrong place to get the decision. His style is kind of, in my opinion, boring, although he's tall and lanky and up against Derek Chisora, it seems like the skills will prevail. But Derek Chisora has been in there with some tough guys, and you never know what to get from him. What's your thoughts on this fight, this matchup first, and who do you think is going to win?
Well, that's the thing with Chisora. You just don't know which Derek Chisora you're going to get. I mean, here's a guy that looked horrible against Tyson Fury, was out of shape, didn't look very good against David Haye either, getting knocked out by Haye, but put in terrific performances, both in losing efforts against Robert Helenius and Vitaly Klitschko. Helenius, I thought he was robbed. I thought he definitely deserved a decision in that fight against the undefeated Helenius. And against Klitschko, he didn't deserve to win that fight. He clearly lost that fight, but he certainly performed well. He did much better than I think people thought he would. So it's hard to tell which guy steps into the ring, and I'm with you. I thought Scott should have gotten a decision in his last fight. He's not a big puncher. He is a heavyweight with 35 wins, but only 12 knockouts. That's a very low KO percentage for a big guy, for a heavyweight. But he's very talented. He's got a really, really good jab. He moves well, and I like the way he puts his punches together. He's not. It's not gonna excite you. He's not. He's not explosive. He's not powerful. It's not going to be a Tony Thompson, David Price kind of fight, I don't think. But I think he's got the skill set to outpoint and beat Chisora, which is what I think is going to end up happening. I think he wins a decision against Chisora.
Showbox has got some pretty decent fights. The one I'm really keeping my eye on is Farah Enos against Badou Jack. Both fighters are coming off of mediocre performances, and they have an opportunity to shine. What's your thoughts on this one on Friday night?
Well, I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's, on paper, I think it's a good fight, a competitive fight. I'm not sure what happens in the ring. Both of these guys are guys, I've seen a little of each of them over the years, but not enough to really know whether, who's going to do what. It's important for both of them, obviously. I think, for Jack, he's an undefeated guy, so he wants to keep his undefeated record intact and, move up. And it's, here's a guy, he's got more fights than Jack. I think he's got 21 or 22, and Jack, I think, has 14. But the competition hasn't been fantastic. So I think they enter the ring fairly even in terms of their records and who they fought. So I hope it's a competitive fight. Their ages are pretty similar. They're both right around 30. So I think it's going to be a competitive fight, and hopefully it'll be entertaining. That's really all we can ask.
Mickey Bay and John Molina is another one. I think it's almost identical to the co-main with Jack and Enos. What's your thoughts on that one?
Mickey Bay, I think, has been a little bit of a disappointment as a pro. I can remember years ago hearing about him, and he was a highly touted prospect, but he just hasn't delivered. He's been very inconsistent over his career. He turned pro in 2005, and he's only had 20 fights. In 8 years, he's only had 20 fights. He's just had periods of inactivity for whatever reason. He just hasn't been consistent. And when he has fought, he hasn't looked consistent. He hasn't been a guy that you look at and you think is one of those sure things. I mean, there have been at times early in his career when you thought that he would be, but he hasn't delivered. He's been very inconsistent. And Molina's a guy, by comparison, he's got 28 fights, and he turned pro in 2006, so a year less than Bay. Just by means of comparison, here's a guy with 28 fights in 7 years, as opposed to Bay, who's only had 20 in 8 years. So just his career has not gone as well as I think he would hope it would be, and a lot of people who saw him early on hoped it would be. Molina is a guy that you look at the records, you look at who they've been in the ring with. Molina's a fighter. Molina's a guy. He's been fighting, and he's taken some lumps, he's taken some losses, but he's had some good wins as well, and he's fought tough fighters now for several years. So he's seasoned. He's been in there. He's been on the major networks. He's won big. He's lost big. So I don't think he's phased. I think he's the more seasoned guy. Bay is sort of the prospect that hasn't budded yet. He just hasn't blossomed into the fighter a lot of people thought he would. A lot of inconsistency. Not to mention, in his last fight, he was busted for banned substances and had to suffer a ban from the sport temporarily. And, this is an aside, I guess, and this is, I'm going to open a can of worms, but I don't get it. He's with Mayweather Promotions, and, Floyd Mayweather, the guy that's supposed to be cleaning up the sport, the guy who's getting rid of all these banned, substances, and we're going to do drug testing, all this stuff. The guy who refused to give the fans the biggest fight in the history of the sport because he wanted to clean it up. He wanted Pacquiao to undergo all this testing, which at the time, I never believed that's what it was about. I always believed there was something else going on. There's two of his fighters, Jalen Love and Mickey Bay, who both recently in their last fights have tested positive for a banned substance. And, I just got to, give Mayweather credit where credit is due, but you know what? You also got to point things out that need to be pointed out. If you're going to refuse to fight the biggest fight in the history of this sport and give the fans the fight that they all want and claim it's because you're doing it for the better of the sport to clean it up, then you know what? If two of your guys, after you've made all of this fuss about a clean sport, two of your guys test positive for a banned substance, why are they still part of your stable? Why aren't you cutting them loose right away to make that statement? So, to me, there's a little bit of hypocrisy there. But back to Mickey Bay, he did test positive, I think, for elevated testosterone or something in his last fight. So he's been out of the ring since February, and overall has had an inconsistent career. I like Molina in this fight. I think Molina's the guy who's been fighting better fighters, and I think he's going to pull off a big win against Mickey Bay this Friday.
For the record, I would love Floyd to somehow test positive, because that's going to only be fitting. I know he's clean, and I know that he says he's clean and he tests clean, and he's the guy that's always asking for the testing and stuff, but I just have this strange feeling that it's going to come out with him someday. But anyway, hey, listen, let's jump over to some news about Mike Tyson. He's entered the promotional arena. Well, at least his name has. He took over for Equinity Sports, which was out of Florida, and they were building a nice little stable with Henry Revolta. And it was announced late last night that Mike Tyson, they're changing the name now from Equinity Sports to Iron Mike Promotions, and Mike is going to be involved with it, and Henry is going to be the president of boxing operations, and they're going to be getting their feet wet. They actually extended Friday Night Fights one extra week. And on August 23rd, up near my neck of the woods at the Turning Stone Resort and Casino, Mike Tyson will be promoting not one but two world title fights as part of the Friday Night Fights season finale, their new season finale. What's your thoughts about Mike Tyson being involved in the sport right now like that? And, overall, what do you think he's going to be just lending his name? He's supposed to be ringside. Oh, that's the other thing. He's not only going to be ringside, but they are announced that he's going to be a guest on Friday Night Fights, which would be one of the first times that he and Teddy Atlas are even sitting next to each other since the famed Teddy Atlas pulling a gun on him.
Yeah, that should be interesting. That's I think that's worth the price of admission right there. I don't know. I think it'll be anticlimactic, though. I think Tyson just is in such a different place mentally, emotionally, spiritually than he was years ago. You know, he was able to sit in the same room with Evander Holyfield, and he apologized to Holyfield. I think the same thing will happen. I think they'll take care of it, obviously, before they go on the air, which would be the smart thing to do. You don't want to just put them on the air without having sat down at all. You don't know what's going to happen. And Teddy Atlas is fairly unpredictable as well. So I think they'll sit down beforehand and say whatever needs to be said, and in the end, it'll be anticlimactic. Maybe we'll get some kind of an apology on the air for anything he's ever done, and Teddy will praise Mike for his career and for what he's doing with his life now, and congratulate him on the Hall of Fame. And that's probably how it's going to go. Tyson's not looking for any trouble anymore. Tyson, you don't hear him looking back and pointing fingers and blaming people, and he doesn't have this list of people who are his enemies and who did him wrong. The guy just, to me, it's one of the greatest stories in this sport, quite frankly. Here's a guy that you remember after fighting Larry Holmes said he's going to end up in jail or dead. And he did his jail time, and he probably came close to dead numerous times, but here he is, and he's a different person. And I seeing him at the Hall of Fame was one of the greatest moments of my life as a boxing fan, because the guy was so humbled. You could just look at him and you could tell in his eyes, in his very being, he just felt like, I don't deserve this honor. This is too much for me. I'm just incredibly privileged to be here. And that's the way he looks at life now. And he's got so many things going on in his life now where he's successful. He's touring, he's doing his one-man show. You see him ringside at a lot of fights. He's ringside at a lot of UFC events. Everywhere he goes, he gets the loudest applaud. It's like Ali. And it's funny, Ali was a guy that, you loved him or hated him. He had a lot of people in his life who couldn't stand him, a lot of people who adored him, but now people revere him. And Tyson's almost getting to that level. And when you think about some of the things he's done, it's astonishing. It really is astonishing that people welcome him the way they do, but it's good to see there's a lot of forgiveness in the hearts of people. They recognize here's a guy that has owned up to the things that he's done and has not hidden from them, has gone public with them, and admits to a changed life. And he's a family man, and I just having him involved in the sport in that way promotionally, I think is only a good thing, and I'm happy for him, and I'm happy that he's involved.
Yeah, me too. And I think losing $289 million and being bankrupt and stuff, that would humble anybody. And I think he does look at things a lot differently now. The one thing that I'm curious to see is as recently as last Friday Night Fights, Teddy Atlas always cuts up on Mike Tyson every chance he gets. Anytime that there's any kind of, connection to Mike Tyson or reference to him, he never has anything good to say. He never does. He might say nothing, but he never says anything good. So you make a great point. It ought to be interesting to see what we get on August 23rd. Hey, Scott, it was great. Now you're going to be coming back on Friday again, yeah?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. We got to talk about the hours and stuff, but Friday, same time as last time, will be what we're doing, bro.
Sounds good, though.
All right, man. Hey, go jump in the pool. Oh, do you have a pool?
We have a pool, but it's not exactly refreshing right now. It's like jumping in a hot bath, man. I don't even want to be outside.
I don't even have a pool, so stop rubbing it in. All right. If I had a pool, even if it was like a bath, I'd be out there. But then again, the bugs up here would eat me alive. They're vicious. They wait for you outside the door. I swear to God. But anyway, Scotty, we'll talk again on Friday. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about then. Hey, by the way, our topic of the week, that we've been discussing, I've been getting a lot of interesting stuff, is the old-time fighters versus today's fighters. Now, I know we've talked about that and beaten it to death, but there's been a new twist. It's the reasons, not so much like one guy is better than another, but the reasons why today's fans that are like 40 years old and younger, why they think the modern fighters, today's fighters, are better. And the general consensus is because they like to see for themselves, and the material that's available to some of the fighters prior to Muhammad Ali is grainy and crappy and all of that. And they make some interesting points. So keep that in the back of your mind. It's something we'll talk about on Friday.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, brother. Take care.
You too.
That's Scotty Krause, and he's trying to stay cool in Maryland, and like it is here. It sounds like it's brutal there as well. There was some fights yesterday, and I just want to give you some results. Sergey Rabinchenko stopped Gary Abadjian in the third round of a scheduled 10-round fight Tuesday night. And so congratulations to him and Ricky Hatton from Hatton Promotions. And that was the fights that kind of slipped under the radar for me. One other thing I wanted to mention real quick, because I got several emails I'm going to read after we get Alex on the line here to do our Blast from the Past, which is a great one. It's on Pancho Villa. Adrien Broner, in my opinion, has officially, listen, a lot of people think he was a total ridiculous a-hole to begin with, but after his most recent stunt, he's clearly an official a-hole. This guy did this video, which happened to have been out already, but made it public and was basically it's all over. Give you a rundown. He's in Popeye's Chicken, and he goes into the bathroom, and they have the camera in there, and they make it like he takes a dump in the bathroom, and what's he doing out? Money. He's crapping money, and you watch him flush it down the toilet. And the truth of the matter is now there's some people that are considering pressing charges because it's a federal crime to deface money, United States money, and that's considered defacing it. Listen, I know he's trying to copy Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather has been seen burning $100 bills, but let me explain something to you about Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather doesn't burn his own money. When he goes to a club and makes an appearance or something and he gets paid to do that, which he does, he'll burn their money, and it's part of his shtick. It's the club owner's money that he's burning, and I'm not saying that that's right, but Adrien Broner is just like a cheap, copycat, whereas Floyd's doing $100 bills and Adrien Broner's, burning 5s, 10s, and 20s, The bottom line is this kid is making some really bad mistakes. And what's going to happen with him is that, the people that are supportive of him, remember, he had HBO in his corner. He kicked them to the curb. He had Showtime. Right now it seems Showtime's in his corner. Golden Boy seems to be in his corner. Mayweather seems to be in his corner. But let me tell you, this kid keeps doing this kind of stuff, and one loss, and he's going to be in a corner, all right. He's going to be in the corner down on the Bowery. That's what's going to happen. You know what the Bowery is? Come on, man. You don't know what the Bowery is? Skid Row, all right?
Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. now has official merchandise available on TalkinBoxing.com. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, and mugs. And yes, even undergarments. Talkin' Boxing apparel is the perfect gift for the boxing fan in your life. Log on to www.talkinboxing.com. That's TalkinBoxing.com and place your order today.
Join us here for 2 hours as Billy and the gang do what they do best.
Every time I start talking about boxing, a white man got to pull Rocky Marciano out their ass. Rocky Marciano was good, but compared to Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano ain't.
Beat Joe Louis's ass.
Joe Louis was 75 years old when he fought.
Huh?
What?
We're supposed to be talking boxing.
It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
As Billy C sits here in the multi-million-dollar Talkin' Boxing studios, sipping a fine wine before you're even out of bed, you should be thinking, damn, I wish I had a mustache like his. It's the Talkin' Boxing with Billy C show. He's Billy C, and you're not. Sucks to be you.
Now let's dig into our archives and hear a rare interview when Billy C first became the champion of boxing talk radio. Hello, Billy C. As the new champ, can we ask you a few questions?
Why, certainly.
Okay, your fans would like to know how you and your corner have successfully walloped the competition.
We're not ordinary people. We're morons.
Anything else?
I'm a victim of circumstance.
Did your success finally come when you made the show 5 days a week for 2 hours? What do you think?
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Now, please tell the listeners what you've learned from making it this far.
Certainly. If at first you don't succeed, keep on sucking till you do succeed.
Great words of wisdom, Billy C. Keep up the great work as the undisputed People's Champion with your show, Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Any last words to anyone who's listening?
This is your fault, you bonehead.
And we're back. You're listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C show, and you're watching us on the Fight Now television channel. Glad you could join us. And speaking of joining us right now is Alex Papali. What's up, man?
Hey, Billy. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Better than you. I guess you got some toxic waste dump going on in the house, or what? And I caught that at the corner of my eye. It's not just the humidity, huh? It's all the paint fumes, too, killing you, or what?
Yeah, I'm getting some painting done, so I got the Triple H plus paint fumes. So, yeah, it's an interesting concoction of air quality.
Yeah, yeah. And you can't blame that one on global warming, can you?
Well, I guess if whatever.
Hey, if all of a sudden I hear a big thud, if I hear a big thud, I'll just keep moving along. All right, that means you passed out or something. But today we're going to be doing our blast from the past, which is sponsored by the International Boxing Organization, where their computerized ranking system is second to none. Check them out, www.iboboxing.com, and it's on a guy that. Really, if you could have a double, he's like an old time version of Manny Pacquiao, and of course I'm talking about Pancho Villa. Tell us about this guy.
Yeah, before there was Manny Pacquiao, there was Pancho Villa, who also his real name actually was Francisco Guido. He was born August 1st, way back in 1901, in the Philippines, in an island called Iloilo. I can't pronounce it. But he was barely 5 feet tall. Some places it's listed as 5'1", but most places from what I read, it looked like he barely made 5 feet. He was flyweight. But he was an explosive fighter, two-fisted, relentless attacker. And, this was the days he fought in the 20s. Early 20s, so, you still had some, politically incorrect, to say the least, of some of the language that you had. There were lots of comparisons, that he was like a jungle animal, that he came out of the jungles of the Philippines, and he fought in a bestial style. He had sudden cat-like qualities to his movements. One line I saw was, "Wild animals are in a fight for their very existence each day," and that's the jungle style that Pancho Villa, brings to mind. So, they play with it. Of course, you had, Tarzan was a popular thing. So, and Battling Siki was around this time too. So you had, they often referred to the color of the fact that he was a little bronze battler, and he wore his hair in a pompadour. But a flyweight and a big puncher, loved body punching. There's a clip of him on YouTube that the reason why it made me think of him was it was just 88 years ago this past weekend that he died, and he had a very strange and tragic end that we'll get to.
The thing about him is, as vicious as he was in the ring, and that's why I opened this segment up with he did fight a lot, like even more aggressive than Manny Pacquiao does today. I mean, that's the way he fought. But the one thing, and similar to Manny as well, he would be the first guy after he destroyed his opponent and they'd be laying there. He was the guy that always helped him up. He was considered at the time one of the best sportsmen in the sport and beyond, and not just boxing, in any sport. He really respected his fellow combatants.
Yeah, he definitely. One of the things they were saying about him was that he had a ring pride all his own. They called him high class. One of the things they said about him was, and they were saying this was a high class thing too, was he never spits blood during a fight, and he swallows his own blood. He won't own up to being damaged by an opponent, so he won't let them see him bleed.
Oh, that must be that must be the cat in him then, huh?
Maybe, yeah. He licks his own wound.
No, cats don't like to.
That's always interesting is when we find other potential blast candidates, and this guy was somebody I never heard of. But I found this in an article in October 23rd, 1922, of the Nashville Tennessean. They said that a lightweight named Roof Turner was the guy who was a pioneer of boxing, an American boxer who went to the Philippines, and he became the influence of a lot of Filipino fighters. What they said was Roof was remarkably clever, good enough to mingle with Joe Gans and the rest of the great ones of a couple of decades ago. And I looked at Roof Turner's record, and it's pretty impressive. But to me is interesting because, like you said, Pancho Villa, of course, had a style that was all offense, attacking offense, probably in a way, like you said, even more aggressive than Pacquiao, and probably a little less skilled. But there was cleverness to it, and it was probably based on what Roof Turner had brought to the Philippines.
In the early part of his career, he fought exclusively in the Philippines. But when he broke into the U.S., after a couple of fights, they welcomed him, especially in New York. I know he's pretty popular in New York. And they loved him. As a matter of fact, he was always one of the biggest draws. I mean, they kind of adopted him, and as we'll get to in a little bit, he liked the nightlife too. I mean, he was a young kid. I mean, he was in his early 20s. He was a teenager when he turned pro, and he didn't hold back from partying it up after the fights.
Yeah, he was, and you're right. He was, he had an all-action style, so the people showed up in droves to see him fight. He fought in big cities, so he was active in the lifestyle after the fights. And I guess from what Bert Sugar, he talks about him in his book, Boxing's Greatest Fighters, and he lists him at 68th. I think that's where he put him, and he. he said he used to play the ukulele. He used to go out, and that was one of the things he used to do when he would party. Is you listen at 64th.
Get all tanked up and play the ukulele?
Yeah.
Isn't that like an Irish thing?
No, ukulele I think is it's like the Pacific Islands.
Oh.
Because isn't it like made out of a coconut? I think.
I don't know, man. Let's get away from that before I say something that you're going to yell at me for. But he had a brother that fought too. That's something I actually just learned. I didn't know that Little Pancho was his brother.
Oh, I didn't know he had a brother. No.
Yeah, he did. He had a younger brother that fought as a professional too, and his name was Little Pancho. And I just learned that. But
sadly, he had a son. Although one article I just read said it was a daughter. About a week before he died.
Yeah, well, they were trying to get the rematch. They were really setting it up. I mean, this guy was in. We'll talk about his death right now. I mean, first of all, in a nutshell, I mean, he was a great fighter. There's no question about it, and very crowd pleasing style, vicious puncher, like we said, and. He fought in an era where there were some newspaper decisions and stuff. It's amazing. I'll get to his record a little bit later, but it's amazing to see how many fights this guy had, and he died before he was 24 years old, which, again, is amazing. He would fight sometimes twice in the same week. He was very busy and all of that, but his death is kind of strange, and then some things that after his death that I've stumbled across is even more strange. Some things that I just learned about over the last 24 hours, actually. The death was weird because he had gotten some wisdom teeth taken out, and apparently they got infected. And he went back to the dentist, and they wanted to do some surgery, or they redid some surgery on it. And the doctor told him, okay, now, hang tight, go home and rest and don't do anything. And Pancho Villa, being the party animal, being 23 years old, didn't heed that warning and went out. And, what happened after that?
Yeah, it led to what's called Ludwig's angina, which is an infection of a life-threatening infection that of the floor of the mouth and some of the tissue in the jaw, and it does create tremendous swelling. And it looks like that the beginnings of it, or at least the infection, the abscessed teeth, he did have in his last bout, which I just cannot believe, because anyone who's ever had any kind of tooth abscess, there's really, the only thing I think that's up there with pain is maybe labor pains, from what I understand.
Passing a kidney stone.
When people rate pain, the tooth pain is up there as one of the worst. But he went into the bout with McLarnin with abscessed teeth. And then, like you said, he got them repaired afterwards. But the Ludwig's angina evidently had already started, and that spreads down into the blood through the jaw, and can lead to death. Angina, it somehow stops the heart.
Yeah, well, angina is a condition of the heart, and that's what they give you that nitroglycerin for to get it back home. But some people even think that fight really was closer than it looks on the record books. That maybe he even should have gotten that win. They were going to have a rematch and all of that stuff, and it never happened. An interesting thing that I had heard, and ultimately what had happened was they rushed him to the hospital, and they were preparing to operate, and he died when they put him under anesthesia. He had a bad reaction and suffocated himself. That's what the official cause of death. But did you catch the story that his widow? Did you hear this? And she died in 1989. Okay, and she was 84 years old, and she insisted her whole life. Now remember, they were kids. He died before he was 24, and she tried telling anybody that would listen for her whole life. So she lived all the way up until 1989. She was 84 years old, and she insisted that a gambling group of guys set up a conspiracy to murder him because of the loss to Jimmy McLaren, that there was tons and tons of gambling money on Pancho Villa in that fight. And as a result, she feels that he was actually injected with an overdose of anesthesia. Did you catch that?
Really? No, I did not know that at all.
Yeah, that's pretty wild, isn't it? I mean, she said that all the way her whole life and to her dying day, that she said, "No, you got it all wrong. This wasn't an accident. This was done on purpose," which I found pretty amazing, man. And another little twist that I saw was that he always thought that he didn't have a father or something, and apparently some guy claimed to be his father, and said that was trying to get a piece of the estate or something, and said that his wife had left him in the Philippines when Pancho was 11 months old, and said that they had gotten back together in 1923 in New York and had a great relationship, but nobody else remembered that either. Did you hear that story?
Wow, no, I didn't hear that.
Jesus, Alex, you're usually telling me stuff, man. Don't make me doing this stuff. Come on, man.
And that the conspiracy there about his death. I mean, you could add him now to Sonny Liston and Arturo Gatti, because that's just another twist of how he went out there. Boy.
Yeah, crazy, right? Crazy stuff. But Pancho Villa was definitely a great fighter, a blast from the past. And
one of the things I wanted to say, if I could just interrupt for 1 second, was that Jimmy Wild, he was another amazing flyweight. And when they fought, Jimmy Wild was coming out of retirement. And this, I had thought we had done a blast on Pancho Villa before, but we didn't. We had done Frankie Gennaro, and Villa and Gennaro had a couple of fights, and Gennaro had actually beat him. It was kind of like, that sounded like they had some really good action fights too. That was one of those boxer versus a puncher back and forth with Gennaro in the boxer role, and Villa coming forward like the bull. But when Jimmy Wild, because Gennaro always had problems making weight, it must be that Italian lifestyle, he kept getting bigger, and I don't think he could keep. They stripped him, it seems, of the flyweight championship. So when Wild came out of retirement and fought Villa, it was in 23. It was for the flyweight championship, and that fight, parts of it are on YouTube, and it's absolutely incredible. And people, I'll post it again. I posted it this weekend, I think, in a couple of groups, but I'll make sure to do it again on Facebook, and I'll tweet it. But people should see it, because these guys are action fighters. They have this hands-down style, and the knockout comes in the 7th round, and Villa was not like a Manny Pacquiao in the sense that he had really big one-punch power, but in this case, he does take Jimmy Wild out with one punch in the 7th round and puts him flat on his face, unconscious in the 7th. It's really quite something. And
not only that, but that was ultimately the end of Wild's career. He never fought again after that. And another thing, people, they look at Pancho Villa, and we got this topic this week about old time fighters, and I know that the footage of him is pretty grainy at best. But when you look at the opponents that he had, he fought Kid Williams, Jackie Fieldman, Mike Moran, Bud Taylor, which was a good fighter, Jimmy McLaren. We mentioned Jimmy Wild and Gennaro and all of those guys. But another guy that he fought a bunch of times was Abe Goldstein. Now, Abe Goldstein, if I'm correct, Abe Goldstein eventually became one of the, and probably Henry Haskup will back me on this, he's in the chat room, I believe it's the same Abe Goldstein that became one of the most well-known referees after his boxing career, and he had a successful career as a fighter, and he fought Pancho Villa several times. Huh?
Yeah,
we're losing. You're. It's that phone thing again, Alex. So I think I just lost Alex, and it seems like we're gonna not get him back because I got the red on there now. But Pancho Villa, Alex, if you can hear me, great job as usual. Pancho Villa was former world flyweight champion. He had a career record of 78 wins, 22 coming by knockout, only 4 losses. And of those 4 losses, he was never stopped. He had 4 draws. Now, he did have some newspaper decisions, 12 wins and 4 newspaper decision losses. In his career, 848 rounds as a professional with a 21% knockout ratio. And here's the thing. He died before he was 24 years old. 78 wins, all those fights, and he wasn't even 24 years old. And as you would expect, he was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 1994. So Pancho Villa, and this is one of those kinds of fights and fighters, I should say, that you just never know about these guys, and it's hard to compare them to today's fighters. Because there's just not, and I get it with you young whippersnappers. I get it that you look at a video, and even the video that Alex is going to post. You look at that and you say, oh well, I can't see. It looks grainy. It doesn't look like he's doing anything. He looks like a club fighter. He looks like this. He looks like that. He's clubbing. I understand. But I mean, when you look at the sheer, busyness, how often these guys fought, it's amazing. It's amazing. A couple of things I want to mention real quick before I take a break and finish up with those emails, because we got some good ones. Cicero, and we actually, LDL TV, and I did the play-by-play. There was a fight scheduled for this weekend at Cicero Stadium that was canceled. Now the promoter says, "Oh yeah, a lot of issues made us cancel. We're going to reschedule." I'll tell you what the issues were. Money. They're not selling tickets, man. And the thing is that the problem with promoters today is simply this: you can't just put on a fight card and sit back and expect people to come in and buy tickets. When I first started promoting way back when, I thought the same thing, man. I made the same mistakes as these idiots are making today. And I was just as much of a fool. The problem with promoters today is that they don't promote. You got to go out there and you got to sell the tickets. What you hear a lot of today is that the fighters are forced to sell the tickets. Oh, can you sell some tickets? Oh, then, you sell the tickets and you will get you on the card. Listen, if you want to be a promoter, if you have dreams of becoming Don King and making all kinds of money and all that stuff, here's rule number 1. A promoter, and I wrote the article. You could check it out. It's under my column on BillyCBoxing.com. The definition of promoter, to promote. Okay, you have to be able to promote your product, and when you're a promoter, your product is the promotion, is that fight card. You have to sell the tickets. And if you think that just by putting on a card and sticking up a couple of posters in a few gas stations around and convenience stores and stuff like that, and people are just going to be flocking to come and see, that's not what's going to happen. I don't care what they tell you. These guys are not selling tickets, and they postponed the card so they wouldn't take a beating. That's what it is. That's what it is. If you're going to become a promoter, you have to be ready, to lose money on the first 3 fights at least. If you could start making a profit on your 4th fight, you're doing good. If you could break even on your first fight, you might as well pop the champagne. You just hit a home run. It just does not happen. You do not make a ton of money in the sport of boxing. I'm sorry to burst your bubble for all you guys out there that have aspirations of becoming promoters. But anyway, a couple other things. The card that I was telling you about on July 27th, that's taking place at the Twin River Event Center in Lincoln, Rhode Island. Here's some stuff for you. They got some special things going on. Both Twin River Event Center and Jimmy Birchfield's Classic Entertainment and Sports are offering you some exclusive rewards for with your ticket purchase. You can get some discounts on seats. You can buy VIP seating and get gift certificates for the casino and also restaurants and stuff. Do me a favor. check out their website. You can get to it very easily by visiting ours, www.BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the fight poster Game On, and click that and go buy yourself some tickets. Ask about the VIPs. Ask about the rewards that they want to give you back, and make sure you tell them Billy C sent you. You got a great card. As a matter of fact, the main event, Rich Gringas going up against Vladimir Boise, the New England super middleweight title on the line. There's also a middleweight prospect, Thomas Fallowo. He's 10-1 out of Pawtucket, Rhode Island. He's going to be going on in an 8-round co-main event against Chris Chapman, who's 10-2. What a great fight that is. I mean, in most cards, that could be a main event, and a great undercard. So check that one out. It's next week, July 27th. Our very own Alex Papali will be there. He's worth the price of admission. From what I understand, he's going to be wearing fishnet stockings. So check out Alex Papali there. Some other news: Paulus Ambunda is going to be making his defense of his WBO bantamweight title. It's taking place on August 1st. He's taking on a tough fight. Now, this is the thing I love about this fight is it's a optional fight. It's a fight he's choosing. And who's he fighting? He's fighting Tomiki Kamada, which is no layup fight. So I give him a lot of credit for that. One last thing, this fight, Derek Chisora and Malik Scott. Scott countered some of the comments that Derek Chisora was making yesterday, and he said, and I quote, "I saw the fight between Thompson and Price, and I knew that Thompson would do it again the second time. It was a great accomplishment." He says he's a good, strong heavyweight. He says, "I've sparred with Thompson before, and I'll support any fighter who wears the stars and stripes." He says, and of course, I was happy that he won. He says, even if Thompson didn't beat Price, I'm on my own path, and I plan on beating Mr. Chisora in a devastating way. He says it's going to be an exciting fight, and I'm looking forward to doing a real good job on him, and this fight's going to be over early. That was a quote by Malik Scott. And, as a counter to Derek Chisora, who was talking some smack yesterday. Hey, listen, I'm going to take a break. When I come back, I got a couple of more emails that I want to read, all concerning our topic of the week, about the old-time fighters versus today's fighters. I got some interesting ones I want to read to you now. I'll give you my thoughts on that. And don't forget, if you want to see me run and scream like a little girl, definitely get involved with the ghost chasing thing that LDL TV's got on. Visit our website, www.BillyCBoxing.com. They need your help. You can get involved and be part of the production. It's a really cool thing. There's a video and all the explanation about it. Go check out the website, www.BillyCBoxing.com, and click the tombstone and play the video. You'll see what I mean. I'll be right back.
Talking Boxing with Billy C. Every week, 2 hours of the best boxing talk on the radio.
I have a bunch of questions, Donnell, right? If you feel like you want to, you can answer for JD first. Why will you win? JD Chapman, why will you win?
Baby Holmes will get sick and get hit by a train that day on the way to the fight, or he might have diarrhea, he might have the flu, he might throw up. One of his eyeballs might fall out that day, and I might get lucky.
Talking Boxing
with Billy C.
In the real world, life has its shares of trials and tribulations, but you don't have to face them alone. This is Patricia Campanaro of Campanaro and Tomkovich. If you are facing emotionally difficult family legal issues from divorce to child custody, reach out to the team that will dedicate themselves to fighting for you, the team of Campanaro and Tomkovich. With almost 30 years of experience handling divorce, child custody, legal guardianship, visitation, and other legal issues dealing with family concerns, we can help you resolve the problems you are facing with professionalism and care. Our supportive staff is always ready to assist you with any questions or concerns you may have. To find out more about Campanaro and Tomkovich, visit us at duchessnylaw.com or call us and speak to a member of our attentive staff at 845-221-4099. That's 845-221-4099. Don't be surprised at court with inexperienced representation. At Campanaro and Tomkovich, we have been helping our clients get the justice they deserve for almost 30 years, and we could do the same for you.
Now back to Talking Boxing with Billy C. He may not have an Excellence in Broadcasting award, but the night's still young.
And he's got martinis.
So you never know what may be by morning. It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
Talking Boxing with Billy C.
the one, the only Don King.
Makes me feel good, Billy, to have you, the #1 show in the country, talking boxing with Billy. So I invite each and every American that's listening to this great show to tune in, because we want you to be there with Billy and me.
St. Jimmy's coming down across the alleyway, up on the boulevard like a zip gun on parade. Lights on the silhouette, he's in some butter net, coming at you on the count of 1, 2.
And we're back. Yeah. You're listening to the Talking Boxing with Billy C show. It's hot as hell in here. Yeah, you're watching us on the Fight Now television channel, and it's hot as hell down there too. But anyway, hey, listen, I made a mistake when just before I hung up on Alex, and it happens occasionally. I'm can't even get the word out. I'm wrong occasionally. All right, but it wasn't Abe Goldstein. It was Ruby Goldstein, which was the referee. So Henry, he's our trivia question guy, man. That's why I love having him in the chat room whenever I need an answer real quick. He's there. But I love this topic. I love it, man. I love this topic that we're talking about, and I'm really loving the answers and the explanations that I'm getting from you guys, and I appreciate it, and I'm glad that we can do this as a team. I mean, we come up with a topic, and we all play nice, and I likes it. Mikey likes it. But I got an email from Dan the Man from Reno. Dan the Man from Reno says, love the show, man. He says, on the old timers versus today's fighters debate, which is great, by the way. He says, you hit it on the head, Billy C. And he says, and this is why you are by far, or it says bar far. Yeah, I think it's a subliminal message. He knows I'm a drunk. He says, Billy C., this is why you are by far the best and most knowledgeable guy in the sport these days. He says, to be honest, I don't understand why your show is not on HBO. Oh, I appreciate that, man. I wish it was on HBO, too, to tell you the truth. He says, but anyway, I'm 33 years old, and I love boxing, but I like to judge all things for myself. Just like if someone tells me to eat this or drink that because it's good or bad, I will try it, but I judge it for myself. It's the same way I deal with people, and it's also the same way I deal with boxing. With that said, just because people, even you who I respect immensely, tells me that so-and-so was a great fighter, I need to see it for myself. With that said, I can't stand watching those old clips of the old-time fighters. I agree it might not be fair to think this way, but even when I consider the film sucks and it can't keep my attention for more than 2 minutes, I don't see anything that I would use as ammo to suggest that the fighters of yesteryear are any better than today's. As a matter of fact, normal opponent-level guys who get beat up regularly look like they could have kicked some of those all-time great arses. He says, I think today's fighters are in better condition, fight better overall, and are better, to be honest. He says, I also think the fighters of the future will even be better than today. That's an interesting concept as well. He says, bottom line, I have no interest in the fighters prior to Ali, so in my opinion, they are all better today. Keep up the work, keep up the great work, and let's get popping, man. What is it with you guys in that thing? Interesting stuff from Dan from Reno. I get it, man. I get it with the video. I've been looking at that very closely. I have a personal interest in that, to be honest, and I can understand why people think that way. I was talking to my man Tony Treem today. And I have a daughter. I have a daughter that's 26 years old, and she was never even born when you used to have to get up to change the channel on the TV, or she wasn't even alive when there wasn't a VCR or a phone that you had to plug into a wall. The technology has changed, so I can understand why you guys are looking at it this way, and I have to respect it. I think the biggest thing I enjoy out of this particular email is the part where Dan says that I think that the fighters of the future will even be better. Interesting stuff, as we say, as human beings evolve, and I look at other sports, and would Babe Ruth be as great today as he was back in those days? Would a hot dog, beer drinking, hot dog eating, cigar smoking guy make it in baseball today? I don't know. Thanks for the email, Dan, and let's get popping, man. But anyway, we got another one. This one's from Devin, my man from Bombay, India. I love getting these emails from all over the place, man. This is cool stuff. And if the phone system was working, I'd be answering the phones too. He says, "Hey, Billy C, interesting topic about the modern fighters versus the old timers." He says, "I'm 27 years old and a boxing fan, and my knowledge of the recent old timers," and this is interesting because his perception of an old timer is Marvin Hagler, Tommy Hearns, Ray Leonard, and Roberto Duran. He says is limited to watching their fights on YouTube and reading books about that era and their biographies, which I have. He says, "I think those four would have easily beaten any of the top guys today." He says, because they were more hungry and tougher and way more skilled than the guys today. As far as anything before the 1970s, I have to rely on documentaries, sometimes in poor quality, and some boxing books, so I don't know how anyone my age or even a little older could possibly judge those guys. I think Devin hits it on the head, and I said this, when I first started talking about this on Monday. I think this is the key right here. With Marvin Hagler, it's funny to hear you guys talk about Marvin Hagler and Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns and so on and so forth as old timers. These are the guys when I was in my 20s. These are the fights I was at. These were the fighters that I think of as still fighting today. And when I think of the year, and somebody mentions 1985, it takes me a second before I realize how long ago that was. The 80s to me seems like, I probably got T-shirts that are from the 80s that I still wear, So, I don't know, man. It's hard, and you guys are going to understand that probably in 25 years. So, but I think that's the key. And, that's something, I'm going to go off a little bit here. That's something that Tony Treem and myself is one of the reasons why we wanted to do the heavyweight spotlight the way we do it now. I know I had been doing the heavyweight spotlight for longer than Tony's been involved with the show, but when Tony got involved with the show, one of our goals with that segment was to, make sure that we keep these memories of some of these fighters, specifically in the heavyweight division, alive. And the same thing is with the segments that Alex and myself do, the Blast from the Past. Same idea. We're trying to keep, some of these memories alive, and hope that we plant a seed in you guys, the younger fans, so that maybe you go on and do a little research and search YouTube for stuff. Alex finds these clips, he posts them and stuff, and we're always open for any emails if you want additional information or if you want us to hook you up with some stuff. I know that whole thing on Elmer Ray, and I've never heard back from the family, but that was very interesting. To hear them reach out to us and want to tell us about what happened to Elmer Ray, since a lot of people don't know. There's really nothing on it, and the family hasn't gotten back to me, so that's why we've had it kind of dead in the water. So that's why we do this, man. It's a little historical part of the show. But anyway, last email from my man Nobody Here. Now, Nobody Here is in the chat room right now as we speak. And he's got a novel here for me. He says old versus new. He's got it broken down. So we're going to go in the sections here. Old versus new. He says the biggest difference with the old and the new is how the stories are framed. He says in yesteryear everyone is trying to be the undisputed champion, unify the belts, etc. well, there was only one belt, but anyway, I get what you mean. He says, when you watch the fights, some of the best fights of yesteryear were unification bouts. You're saying yesteryear of maybe the 80s, because the years, before, generally there was one belt up until, the 70s, really. Yes, there was the NBA and some other belts. There were some times when there was some other belts, but generally there was one. But anyway, he says they were all king of the mountain fights. That's a good analogy, and you're right. There was some kind of pride involved. Not only did they want, it's like even when I was a kid, you play King of the Mountain or something like that. What do you say? When you win, I'm the world heavyweight champion. I'm the champion. I'm the heavyweight champion of the world. Was like the biggest title you could have. It wasn't the Super Bowl champion. It wasn't the World Series champion. It wasn't forget about the Stanley Cup. It wasn't anything like that. I was the world heavyweight champion. That was the ultimate crown to have. And now it means nothing. It means nothing, the heavyweight championship. Everybody's got a belt, but that's what he means. He says, so there was extreme gravitas for the fighters and for the audience, which I agree. He says, fast forward to the present day, nobody fights for unification bouts of all the belts in a weight class anymore. He says it's not even vogue because the fighters and promoters got smart. They realized they could make more money over a longer period of time just by extending their careers, by controlling whom they fight instead of the commission. So the commission doesn't run the fight game anymore. Now the fighters and the promoters run the fight game, and belts help legitimize champions, but don't define the champions. Records help loister fighters' perceptive competence. Let me just tell you this. The networks and the promoters put the value in the belts. That's why, they're the first ones to complain. But if they weren't paying the sanctioning fees, we wouldn't have all these belts. He says, for example, fast forward today, Manny Pacquiao best fights were catchweights for titles. I doubt he would even exist in the same way in yesteryear. Listen, I don't know if I agree with that. There's rules with commissions now. In yesteryear, it didn't. If you wanted to challenge the heavyweight and you weighed 130 pounds, they didn't give two craps that the heavyweight champion weighed 200 pounds and you weighed 130. They said, okay, you want to fight him, knock yourself out. Now they have the difference rules. So if you have a welterweight fight and you only weigh 140 and your opponent weighs 147, it's a 7-pound swing. They won't let the fight, even though it's contracted for welterweight. So, there's other things involved and catchweights. That's why I don't like catchweights, but that's why they have them in those cases. He says this works because the Giants performance center makes it worth watching. He says Triple G is another one. Everyone is crowning him, and he's got very few accomplishments. He's not even under a unified champion, but people want him to fight the best. Weird, if you ask me. He says Floyd Mayweather fighting Alvarez. Everyone wants to talk about it, but in reality, Alvarez has done nothing to warrant all this hype. He's not an Olympian, and he's only held an official title for a short time. People believe he has a chance to beat Mayweather, so the fight's happening. Actually, he reminds me of a little bit, except if this fight happened in the 1900s, it would have been 35-rounder. He says, He says, the loss of boxing doesn't really know who's good and who's not. He says they have to depend on who's better promoted or picks the best fights to show off their skills. I agree with that. He says, problem with this is that smaller good fighters have trouble getting good fights. They have to be spectacular in the ring and be with the right cliche to get, or click, I should say, to get the right fight, or with the right promoter, with the right connections, etc. Same difference. He says the current process is very unlike yesteryear. Before you could chase a champion, now you have to chase a click, get a following, then chase a champion. Great point, and that's true. He says athleticism, old versus new. He says older fighters had more endurance. It's clear as day in all the films you watch and the articles you read. They fought so many rounds and they were so tough. Injuries, number of fights, conditions. It was just harder sport back then. Now boxers spar more than they fight, which is very, very true. A lot of fighters spar more now. They used to fight to keep in shape. That's why they would fight title fights only, every so often, and in between fighting literally like a sparring match, which is a great point. He says, so they appear sharper and they have more athleticism. That's just history and more available drugs. Strategy-wise, older fighters appear more game and willing to do whatever it takes mentally to win those fights. I love the old-timers for strategy alone, but not for the athleticism. I agree with you. There. I've always said, a guy that was in poverty in 1920, didn't know if he was going to have dinner that day, or maybe had to go to school as a kid with no shoes on his feet, or had to wear his sister's clothes. I mean, that was a common stories you heard about poverty-stricken people back in the 20s and the 30s. Today, a poverty kid, and I'm not suggesting that poverty is a cool thing in any stretch of the imagination, but the level of poverty today, a kid that would be classified as living in poverty, he's got a cell phone, he's got $200 sneakers on, it's a different world, and they're both still considered poverty stricken. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. He says better old versus new. He says older fighters were better not because of their skill, but because of the framing of the fights. Simply put, in the old, the best eventually fought the best because the king of the hill made real money and prestige. He says now the best may only fight the best. He says no, now the best may fight the best. There's a million belts, he says, which devalues the commission. People don't know what the belts mean. No one knows who the best fighter is. Instead, it's really who's the loudest, thanks to Ali. He says an easy example is if you rewatch Hagler versus Leonard. Leonard takes a break, then comes back and fights Hagler. The whole commentary is about how Leonard looks amazing after his layoff, and he must be great. At the end, everyone is screaming champion. That was, that fight irked me so much because of that reason, and it also changed the way, up until that fight, there was the unwritten rule that you had to knock out the champion to win the belt. After that fight, it's never been the same. He says Floyd Mayweather did the same thing to Marquez. No one screams champion. Floyd Mayweather dominates Marquez, and all they say is he's too big. No one said that about Hearns. Floyd Mayweather also never looks vulnerable. It leads people to believe that his fights are rigged in some way. He's picking those fights. Is he that good? Is good if he never gets himself in trouble? No way to know. He doesn't fight for undisputed belts. It's always been speculation. Floyd Mayweather simply found an ethos that made sense and crafted a good story for him that is supported by his performances against champions. I expect in the coming fighters will do the same, and we will return to fights with serious stipulations that we can all enjoy. It's silly to compare skills in any real way from old to new, because the new steals stuff from old, regardless of the video. Hell, Mike Tyson is a complete throwback fighter. I relish the tension, the meaning, the pressure, the prestige of fights of yesteryear. That's what matters, and that's what makes the fighters great, or in this case, made them great. Great email, great points from nobody here. I think it's safe to say that it's still hard to compare errors, no matter how you slice it, right? And I think that we all can agree that life was tougher for all of us, not just in the boxing business, but for everybody. Life was tougher the longer you go back, and we can assume that life is going to get better and better as time goes on. The skill set and the definition of sweet science is the issue here. I think it's I think it continues to boil down to what data do we have available to make these comparisons. You're always going to look at the fighters, and in this case we're talking about fighters, you could be talking about any sport, but you're going to look at the ones that you're living through. As a young adult now, if you're in your 20s or 30s, 20 years from now, when you're in your 50s, you're going to be looking back at the fighters of today, these Floyd Mayweather guys and stuff like that, and you will, mark my words, you will be comparing him to some of the new fighters, and you will have the same arguments with the younger fans in the future, 25 years from now, that those 25 and 30-year-old fans are going to be hemming and hawing about how their heroes are the ones that are better. It was no different than any other generation. One thing that always made me laugh was that when Muhammad Ali, which we regard now, those late 60s and early 70s, is regarded as the golden era for the heavyweight division. Well, when Muhammad Ali and Sonny Liston and all those great heavyweights were fighting, there were guys saying, this division is nothing like when Rocky Marciano fought. Back in the 50s, that was when it was at. I remember reading a quote from James Jeffries about the fighters of the modern era, and he was calling them, and that was like Joe Louis and fighters around that time. He says, these guys are a bunch of sissies compared to the way we fought in the early 1900s. So every generation is always going to think that their fighters were better. That's not really the issue. The issue here is, how do we make legitimate comparisons? And I think that technology plays a real important role in making these comparisons, and I think you guys have proven that by going back as far as Marvin Hagler and Tommy Hearns, because in the 80s, that's when the technology changed drastically. That was when the era of technology had taken over, and we started advancing in technology. Computers came into play, digital stuff came into play, and that's why when we go to YouTube and we go to these videos and stuff, the quality of the video, the perception, the speed in which it was recorded, we can get a better feel for how these fighters fought. When you go prior to that, even the early days, like I was saying yesterday with Muhammad Ali, those early days are hard to judge. Go look at Floyd Patterson fighting Sonny Liston and tell me that you can really judge how good those fighters were. And when you go back even further, you watch those Gillette fight nights and you watch the Rocky Marciano fights, and prior to that, it's very hard to judge. Unfortunately, there is no right answer, there is no wrong answer, but keep your thoughts coming, because I'm loving this, really.
This day in boxing history.
Not that one.
Wake up. It's time for the It's Too Early for a Trivia Question.
The damn heat is screwing up the system. Yeah, it wasn't me, man. It was the heat. It was the heat, man. It was the hazy, hot, and humid. It was the heat. Today's It's Too Early for a Trivia Question is being sponsored by Jimmy Birchfield's Classic Entertainment and Sports and their next event, which is July 27th at the Twin River Event Center. Get yourself some tickets right now by visiting our website, www.BillyCBoxing.com, and click on the Game On fight poster. Yeah. Just do that. Get yourself some tickets. Now, every day, our trivia question is being supplied by our very own trivia question guru. Give a shout out to my man, Davema. Davema's, I'm sure he's got his feet up on his desk right now, working hard out in California. I'm glad to see him in the chat room. So what's up, Davema? But Henry Haskup gives us our trivia question. I'm going to give you another hint today. I gave you one yesterday. I'm going to give you another one today. Who fought the most world title bouts without ever beating a world champion? Now, this doesn't mean he fought in all these world title bouts and never won. This is just saying that he didn't beat a world champion. So think about the question. Now, if you're the first one to get it right by emailing me, Billy@TalkinBoxing, that's TalkinBoxing.com, I'm going to send you your very own copy of the Title Bout Championship computer game. It's bigger, it's better, and it's cheaper. But we got one more copy to give to you. So if you're the first one to get this one right, you're going to get the last one for at least a couple of months. So who fought the most world title bouts without ever beating a world champion? Email me the correct answer, Billy@TalkinBoxing, that's TalkinBoxing.com. So you want me to give you a couple of hints, right? Okay. Here's the thing. Yesterday I gave you a hint that this guy was a world champion. He was a world champion. All right. So this was the he was a world champion. All right. So I'm going to give you another hint. He fought in 10 world title fights. He fought in 10 world title fights. All right, so you know he was a former world champion, and he fought in 10 world title fights, and he never beat a world champion. That's the clues you're getting today. All right, so come on, man. We got one more copy. I got some more questions to get to. I want to get rid of this page. So if you know that answer, so the question is, who fought the most world title bouts without ever beating a world champion? The hints are He was a world champion, and he fought in 10 world title bouts. If you're the first one to get that right, you're going to get the prize. Email me, Billy@TalkinBoxing. That's TalkinBoxing.com. Now, I already played this, but I'll play it again.
This day in boxing history.
Look at Dave Ma. Dave Ma's in the chat room, and what's he doing? He's stirring up. He's referring to Tyson Fury as a bum, and Dave Ma is a big David Haye fan, and I early on am thinking that David Haye is going to beat Tyson Fury, but I will tell you this: I'll be rooting for Tyson Fury, just like I'll be rooting for Canelo Alvarez, even though I think Floyd's going to beat him. But anyway, this day in boxing history is being brought to us by Campanaro and Tomkovich. That's right. If you're looking for a lawyer, use the ones that keep my ass out of trouble. That is Campanaro and Tomkovich. Give them a call today, 845-221-4099. 845-221-4099. Now, don't forget, if you got yourself in some trouble and you need some legal representation this week, if you call them and tell them Billy C sent you, I'm going to pick up the consultation fee. Tell them that too. Mention that to them real quick. But 845-221-4099. Let Campanaro and Tomkovich knock out your legal problem. 845-221-4099. Okay, I got a bunch of cool ones, man. On this day, July 17th, right? On this day, July 17th, right? In 1983, Carlos De Leon wins a 12-round decision over S.T. Gordon. Who names a kid S.T.? It's like, what should we name him? Should we name him Steve? Should we name him Tom? I want Steve. I want Tom. Well, let's just call him S.T. Okay. Carlos De Leon wins a 12-round decision over S.T. Gordon to regain the WBC World Cruiserweight title. That took place on this day in 1983 in Las Vegas. On this day, July 17th in 1976, Pepino Cuevas knocks out Angel Espada in the second round to win the WBA World Welterweight title, and that took place on this day in 1976 in Mexico. On this day, July 17th in 1930, Al Singer knocks out Sammy Mandel, another blast from the past guy, in the very first round to win the world lightweight title, and that took place in the Bronx, New York, on this day in 1930. On this day in 2004, Juan Baby Bull Diaz wins a 12-round decision over Lakifa Sim to win the WBA World Lightweight title, and that took place in Houston, Texas, on this day in 2004. On this day, July 17th in 2007, Dazuki Natio wins a 12-round decision over Pongsalek Wanjongkam. I got that one right. I hit that one right. That's Wanjongkam. To win the WBC flyweight title in Tokyo, Japan, on this day in 2007. And on this day, July 17th in 1907, one of my favorite fighters of all time, Jack Johnson, knocks out one of my man Tony Treem's favorite fighters of all time, Bob Fitzsimmons, in the second round of a scheduled 6-round heavyweight contest to improve to 32 wins, 5 losses, and 7 draws in Philadelphia on this day in 1907. Hey, man, that concludes our show for today. Do me a favor. Click that poster about the ghost thing. If you want to see me running and screaming like a girl, help out LDL TV to make that happen. It's right on the front page of our website. Check it out, www.BillyCBoxing.com. It's a poster. It's got the tombstone on it. Click it. It's got a video and all that stuff. It'll explain the whole thing, and do what you can on that. And also, cast your vote about the old fighters versus today's fighters, and while you're at it, drop me an email, Billy@TalkinBoxing.com. That's TalkinBoxing.com. Oh yeah, and I got one more thing to say. Make sure you tune in tomorrow evening, same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, ciao, baby.